In our society, most child molesters don't see the moral dilemma, and many believe the laws are arbitrary and should be changed. But Abel says there's one area that can't be disputed.
I believe the issue is this: children cannot give consent. That's the nut of it. But children can't give consent because they don't know what they're giving consent to.
I would say in most cases they quite do. Certainly in light of the last couple of decades of life here in the United States, they would know that.
Child molesters can be arrested for their actions, but being a pedophile and wanting to molest children is not a crime.
There are certain needs you may have where you belong in prison or in some form of control if you can't prevent yourself from acting out on those needs. Now, we'll offer you treatment. We'll offer you ways of saying, look, maybe we can help you keep your hands off of little children.
Leland, did you ever consider or think about treatment to change your arousal?
If you felt, now, Rhonda, that you have been given a tremendous blessing from heaven above, something that livened your entire life, that colored it, that made it beautiful and wonderful, that made you want to be alive, and gave you a feeling that the universe is profoundly good, would you, in your wildest imagination, suppose that you would go to a therapist to cure you of feeling good, of feeling love?
So, now, these guys obviously are way up here. I mean, super deviant, distorted. Why aren't they in jail? That's a really good question. That's a good question, and I wish they were, but the majority of sex offenders are not in jail. We only catch.
Well, but they're not, it's not illegal.
Right. We only catch and prosecute successfully 3 to 10% of the sex offenders. And the reason they're not in jail is, let's say somebody's molesting a kid, and they're doing a good enough job so that the kid doesn't know that's what's happening initially. Many times children won't know that this is actually sex abuse until it's happened 10, 15, 20 times because it's so gradual. And if a child hasn't had a parent or a teacher or a counselor or somebody talk to them about exactly what sex abuse is, it makes it even harder for kids to understand that that's what this is. But let's say a kid does understand what's happening, and somebody hasn't talked to him about how to tell and what to say and who to tell, that may also not end up with somebody being in jail. I had a case years ago where a little girl who was probably 4 or 5 years old, her dad was molesting her, and she kind of knew that's what was happening, but she didn't know what to say. Nobody had ever told her how to go report. And so one day she happened to see something on TV about somebody having an affair, and she thought maybe she should go tell her mom that her dad was having an affair with her. And so she went in the kitchen, and this is a little kid. I mean, what can you expect? And so she goes in the kitchen and she says, Mom's doing dishes. What would you do if you found out Daddy was having an affair? And the mother, without thinking, said, I'd kill that woman. Oh. And the kid, who was this little girl, I mean, she remembered this incident. And eventually, when she was about 14, of course, she decided she wasn't going to tell, got that message pretty clear, told a friend that she thought she was pregnant by her dad. And the friend told the mom, who called the cops. And so then the mother, I was in the room when the mother said, how come you didn't tell me? This has been going on for, so many years. And the kid said, well, I tried. Do you remember the day when I came into the kitchen and asked you? And the mother remembered and felt horrible, but it was too late. Because she hadn't just stopped and said, why are you asking me that? So anyway, so a case could not get identified because of that, and somebody could not be in prison. I had another case years later with a little girl by the name of Charlie, whose stepfather was molesting her. Her mother had been 17 when her 40-year-old stepfather married her mother. I mean, she was a victim too, obviously. So probably there was some reason that this kid didn't think her mom would do anything and probably would just tell her to keep it quiet. But anyway, so she told her aunt, and the aunt called the police, and the offender lied and said he didn't do it and hadn't been doing this, and his defense attorney hired a psychologist, a dirtbag psychologist, I might add, who ended up testifying in court that Charlie was lying, and the proof he offered up, which the jury bought, was that Charlie was lying, and the proof was that her grades got better during the time she was supposedly being molested. Now, she was being molested, and her grades did get better, and the jury couldn't understand that. They thought that didn't make any sense, but the minute I looked at it, I said, well, sure, yeah, this makes sense to me. Why do you think her grades got better?
Spent all the time in school.
Exactly. She was, and it could have been that he was doing a lot of homework with her to be able to spend private time alone with her, but as it was, she was doing exactly that. She was hiding out at school, and it was one place where she felt like she could be a good girl, and so she was excelling at school, and of course that makes sense. But sometimes jurors think that a kid's going to like try to stay away from the person, or they're going to be afraid of the person, or they're going to hate the person. And if the offender is pretty slick, they're going to manipulate the heck out of the kid, and the kid may love them. I've had kids who didn't want their offender reported to police, who wanted to stay living with their offender. I mean, sometimes it's somebody that is working the kid and or in all other ways is being nice to the kid. So it's not that black and white. But anyway, so that case got lost. And then, you know, the police have to be able to do a good enough job to give it to the DA. He has to be able to feel like he can win a case and file charges and take it to a jury. So we lose a lot of cases. So it's not surprising to me that these guys are saying this on TV. In the U.S., we have freedom of speech stuff. And you can say anything you want, pretty much, about having sex with kids. But if you do it and the kid tells and the person reports, and I mean, it's a huge thing to be able to actually prosecute somebody. So does that make sense? It's kind of sad. So what's wrong with these guys? Besides they're not in prison. They're breathing perhaps, but my folks. So what else is wrong with them?
They're very full of themselves.
Very arrogant, very entitled, very self-centered. They think this is great for kids. Well, that's not true. All the research we have really says that this is very exploitive and hurts children.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Have you had much experience with someone with
Yeah.
that type of personality?
Yeah.
Now, do they truly believe that it's okay, or is it that self-centered part that's just kind of
It's
putting?
both.
Yeah. Because,
It's both.
I mean, how could you
They
really?
wanna believe it.
Yeah, they want to believe it.
Mhm.
Because how could you really think that that's okay, or that it's not hurtful in
Well,
any way?
part of it is that the way they molest kids is so manipulative that they can get kids to say, yes, I like this, yes, I want to do this. It can go
Sure.
that far too.
Yeah.
So let me change subjects here for a second. Let's talk about incidence rates. We do know from many anonymous surveys that somewhere between 5 and 20% of males in the U.S. and actually North America will admit at least one incident of sexual assault. We also know that 1 to 2% of the male population in North America will be convicted of a sexual crime at some point, but we also know from randomized response surveys, which is a very good way to collect sensitive data, that somewhere between 5 and 10%, which is 1 out of every 10 to 20 males, have molested a kid. Now, let me tell you what the study ended up coming from. In 1986, this man by the name of Bud Lewis did a study, and they had a whole bunch of doctoral interns call randomly thousands of people in the U.S. And when the people answered their phone at home in the evening, in their kitchen, let's say, the team said to them, we're doing a survey about child abuse. Would you be willing to answer some questions? Some of the people said yes, some said no. The thought is that probably people who had some family history or personal history were more likely to agree of just general child maltreatment. So that probably skews the finding. The other thing, though, is that this survey was conducted in 1986, and we could never redo this because now there's so much stigma attached to child molesters, nobody in their right mind would admit it. And so what happened was, they said, okay, now thank you for agreeing. We'd like you, now that you agreed, and before we ask you the questions, we want you to take out a coin or a dice, flip it or roll it. If you get heads or evens, we want you to tell us the truth, but if you get tails or odds, we want you to lie. And so what that does is these people in their kitchen are looking at their hand knowing that no one will ever know whether they've got heads or tails. And so they're guaranteed anonymity. Today, people would think there was a spy camera in their ceiling or something, so we could never do this again. But anyway, after they were done with the questions about general child maltreatment, the last question was, as an adult, have you ever sexually molested a child? And they defined child, adult, and sexually molested in a way that we'd all agree on. And when they were done with the number crunching, what they came up with was somewhere between 1 out of every 8 and 12 men said they molested a kid. So, who knows? Very controversial study. It's the only one of its kind. The Department of Justice later said that's crazy. We can't believe it. We think it's 1 out of 20. Now, I don't care if it's 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 or 1 out of 30. I don't even care if it's 1 out of 50. How many men in your church might have molested a kid? We don't know. We don't know. But it's high enough that we need to at least remember that probably every single one of us knows somebody who's molested a kid and they've never been caught. They've never been told on. They've never been prosecuted. They just haven't been identified. And so if you deal with your children's safety and your family rules just from that one thought, you'll probably be better off and your kids will be safer. Okay, this is a religious focused study, and this is a little disconcerting. Small sample, 111 men.